New Christians often have a radiant love for Jesus. Sadly, as time passes, that love sometimes cools. In the 1st century A.D., Ephesus was a major city along the coast of what is now Turkey. Acts 18 tells of Paul's founding of its local church. Later, Jesus commended the Ephesian church, but then chastised them for leaving their first love. What would he say about your church? From the Moody Church in Chicago, this is Running to Win with Dr. Erwin Lutzer, whose clear teaching helps us make it across the finish line. Today, Erwin Lutzer continues his 8-part series on what Jesus thinks of his church. Turn with us to Revelation chapter 2 as we see what happens when Jesus observes our love.
Well, my friend, today I begin with a question. What does Jesus think of his church? That's the question. The question isn't what does George Barna think of the church? He does a great deal of analysis regarding church and culture. That's not the question. Not the question of what a church consultant believes about the church, though they may be helpful in certain situations. The question before us very simply is this: what does Jesus think of his church, and more specifically, the Moody Church, or the church to which you belong? What does he think of it? Well, today we're in Revelation chapter 2. As we learned last time, John had this marvelous revelation from Jesus. Jesus comes standing, the scripture says, standing amid the candlesticks. And we learned that the candlesticks are the 7 churches. By the time you get to chapter 2 of Revelation, he is not only standing among them, but he also walks among them. What does Jesus do on Sunday mornings? He comes to church. Oh, I know there's a sense in which he's everywhere, and therefore simultaneously as being omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, but there's a sense in which Jesus Christ's focus on the church is more important than, say, the political situation of the world, because it is the church for which he died. And today he goes among the aisles, he's up in the balcony, and he's observing. And what he's looking for is the extent of our love. And that's the agenda. Why 7 churches when we know that there were at least 12 churches in Asia Minor? These are representative churches. Every church that has ever existed since, in one sense, fits into one category or another, at least loosely. The churches represent various churches throughout the history of the church. And that's why, as I encourage you to read, ask yourself, what one best describes our church? And so with that background, we look here at the letter to the church at Ephesus. By the way, it says to the angel of the church. And the word angel sometimes means messenger, and it may be that Jesus is thinking about the messenger of the church. It's also possible that every church has an angel, one specifically assigned to a congregation. Some people think that the angel is the pastor. Well, that could be if he's the messenger, but between you and me and nobody else listening, this pastor is not an angel. But nonetheless, I received the letter to the church at Ephesus, and really, at the end of the day, to us. To the angel of the church in Ephesus, the words, write these words of him who holds the 7 stars, and the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. He not only has them in his hands, but he holds them in his hands. Can you have a relationship that is any more direct than that? And then it says, and who walks amid the 7 golden lampstands, amid the churches, here at the aisles and in the choir loft and in the balcony and all over. Jesus is walking in our midst. Well, the letter begins actually with a word of commendation. He gives them a compliment. He says, I know your works, by the way, and he does know. Omniscience. He knows our motives. He knows whether we are late or early. He knows exactly what our motivations are. He knows like no consultant could possibly know. He says, I know your works and your toil. We put those together. In fact, the idea is that these people work they labor to the point of weariness. I'm sure that they helped the sick. They responded to those who were lonely. They were a beehive of activity, just like Moody Church is, from about 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. By the way, at 7 o'clock, our men here who are part of our responsibility of maintenance, they're out sweeping the sidewalks. If you don't get here at 7, you'll never see them do that. They're preparing the church, making sure that everything is in place for us. The technical crew is praying here at about, 7:30 or 8, asking God to help them, because the technology really is necessary for us to get the word out. And then the Sunday school teachers begin to arrive, and all kinds of other things happen. And it's a busy church, and the church at Ephesus was a busy church, but it was also busy outside of its walls as we are serving the Lord. What a church to be a pastor of, a beehive of activity. I remember a pastor saying that he lived in a little town with a church where everyone from the town went to church, and he used to go to the train station every day to watch the train come in and leave. And then afterwards he'd go home, and somebody said, why are you here every day doing that? And he said, this is the only thing in this town that moves that I don't have to push. And he loved to see that train. Well, there's lots here at the Moody Church that I don't have to push. Last night I read the entire bulletin, all of the opportunities for ministry. We've got so much going on. Thank God there's much going on that I don't have to push. Like the church at Ephesus, your weariness and your toil and your perseverance. You'll notice it says patient endurance. Now remember the context. The 19th chapter of the book of Acts tells us about the beginning of the church, and it is there where you had the great statue to the goddess Diana. And Demetrius, I believe that he was a silversmith who made little shrines to the goddess and made his money that way. And then when the church began, people stopped buying these shrines